And I'm going to break off from this story now because this is very important breaking news. The Sun tomorrow on its front page will have...
In accordance with the personal testamentary wishes of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, the palace statement read, issued quietly, just before midnight on the 25th of March 2026, a privately held Highland estate has passed to Her Royal Highness Princess Charlotte of Wales in full and exclusive title. There was no fanfare, no portrait, no photo of Charlotte receiving keys or touring grounds. Only a line in the Public Land Registry updated hours earlier, and this carefully worded confirmation, delivered by Buckingham Palace's press secretary under the category Private Estates, Non-Crown Holdings. But for royal watchers, historians, and even senior courtiers, the shock was seismic, because the estate in question, Eldenmore Estate, had never appeared on any official royal inventory, and yet its existence had long been whispered in archival corners and off-the-record briefings, under its internal code name, Site V. And now, the sole inheritor was the king's granddaughter, not the Duchy of Lancaster, not the Crown Estate, not even Prince William or Catherine, but Princess Charlotte alone. Eldenmore Estate, now revealed to span over 230 acres of rugged, pine-cloaked terrain in the northern Cairngorms, had remained invisible to the public for over 70 years. Its deed, purchased in late 1952 under the name of a private holding company, had no reference to royal ownership. Yet multiple royal insiders now confirm the truth. Eldenmore was Queen Elizabeth II's most personal sanctuary, created for retreat, not ceremony. No guards, no visitors, no press, recalled one senior query. It was where she reviewed red boxes without intrusion, where she walked alone, where no crown touched her soul. Its architectural footprint is modest: a stone manor tucked behind a lock, stables, a library wing, and a chapel ruin converted into a private garden. But its symbolic weight? Unmatched. And now, it belongs entirely to Princess Charlotte. For months, multiple palace aides confirm, Queen Camilla had been quietly pursuing control of the Eldenmore lands under the guise of conservation, literary retreats, and charitable expansion. At a private meeting held at Burke Hall in early January, she floated the idea to King Charles and a group of estate consultants. Let us preserve what she loved. Let us share it with the nation. On paper, it sounded noble. Restoration grants, British author residencies, Highland ecology projects, boutique, by invitation only tourism with strict heritage protections. But insiders saw through the gloss. She wasn't asking for a cottage, one household official put it bluntly. She was asking for geography, legacy, and leverage. For Queen Camilla, whose public standing had waned since early 2025, and whose role as Queen Consort had become increasingly ceremonial, Eldenmore represented a last symbolic conquest, a chance to rewrite her place beside the late monarch, even if posthumously. She began early groundwork. Surveyors sent under environmental audit pretext, restoration budgets drawn up by royal architectural firms, zoning inquiries into potential culinary tourism partnerships quietly led by her son, Tom Parker Bowles. But all efforts were stalled at one unexpected source: King Charles himself. Rather than publicly oppose Camilla's efforts, Charles did something more royal, more devastating. He deferred. He asked for time. He requested counsel from the Royal Estate Board and instructed a full review of the trust layers tied to pre-195 3 Highland properties. Behind closed doors on January 12, at a constitutional roundtable with his private secretary and 2 royal solicitors, Charles drew the line. This estate is not available for reassignment. Not now, not ever. He didn't mention Charlotte. He didn't reference the late Queen's sealed inheritance clause. He didn't even use the name Eldenmore. He simply invoked what aides later called a pre-existing personal settlement beyond Crown review. It was soft. It was final. And it devastated Camilla. She left the room standing, one witness shared. But she walked slower than she came in. She knew. The palace's midnight statement confirmed what Camilla's circle had already feared. The Eldenmore estate had been legally sealed away from her reach, years before Queen Elizabeth's passing. In a rarely used legal mechanism known as a conditional personal legacy deed, the Queen ensured that Eldenmore would never be absorbed into Crown assets. The inheritance would activate only upon the death of all listed trustees, and most strikingly, Queen Camilla, her children, and their direct descendants were to be explicitly excluded from access, influence, or symbolic association. The clause, nicknamed Clause 31 by Palace legal staff, was signed by the Queen in August 2021, just 4 months after Prince Philip's funeral. 4 people knew of its existence: her private solicitor, Princess Anne, the Queen's personal archivist, and Prince William. All were sworn to secrecy. All remained silent until now. While the public was watching Charlotte at Wimbledon or standing next to her brothers on the palace balcony, a quiet preparation had been unfolding. Beginning in mid-2025, Charlotte had made repeated low-profile trips to Glenmore Village, escorted not by a motorcade, but by a plainclothes female protection officer. Locals were told she was part of a university college research project on topographic history. In reality, she was being mentored by 2 retired royal archivists and 1 constitutional advisor, learning how to manage classified personal archives, how to review estate stewardship and staffing contracts, and how to exercise legal dominion over non-crown Highland property. She never asked for the inheritance, said one archivist. She was trained for stewardship, and she took it seriously from the beginning. On the evening of January 30, just hours before the statement dropped, Princess Charlotte was spotted entering Greyfriars Church, a centuries-old chapel near Eldenmore. No media, no escort, no royal fanfare. Just a young woman in a wool coat. Pinned to her lapel was a brooch never seen before, silver thistle interwoven with Tudor roses, and a tiny heart of diamond at the center. Engraved underneath, "For service, not spectac." A private motto once used by Queen Elizabeth in her handwritten letters to only 3 people: Princess Anne, Prince Philip, and Lady Sarah Chatto. And now Princess Charlotte. She stepped to a simple microphone and delivered a short speech prepared for a local youth charity event. What she said, however, would go viral within hours. "This house is not a trophy, it is a responsibility. I do not claim it because of my name, but because of what I have learned from those who came before me. Quiet loyalty, private strength, and duty that protects without display. I will not run from the inheritance of character, and I will not allow its meaning to be rewritten." Then she bowed, not to the audience, not to the press, but to a stone carving behind her, a quote from Queen Elizabeth II's first televised Christmas address. "It is not the crown that grants duty, it is duty that gives meaning to the crown." Within 72 hours of Princess Charlotte's speech at Greyfriars, as headlines across Britain hailed her quiet strength, Queen Camilla struck back not with words, but with spectacle. Her office announced a sudden, high-profile initiative titled The Crown's Compassion, a life in modern royal service. Slated to debut at St. George's Hall, the exhibit promised to celebrate Camilla's decades of work, highlighting women's literacy campaigns, domestic abuse advocacy, and the evolving role of the royal spouse. But the timing was transparent. The announcement landed just 30 minutes after the Royal Collection Trust confirmed Charlotte's archival project with Princess Anne. The Quiet Years, Unseen Legacy of Elizabeth II. Even the venue was symbolic. St. George's Hall, once used for Queen Elizabeth II's state banquets and lying in state, was a sacred chamber of royal memory. Now Camilla sought to reshape it as her stage. She felt cornered, a senior aide confided. So she tried to reframe the narrative to remind the world she had served too. But inside the palace, the response was frostbitten. Princess Anne, when asked by reporters at a naval charity gala if she would attend Camilla's exhibition, replied only, "Some stories write themselves." No further comment. But the deeper blow came from King Charles himself. He didn't show up. Officially, he had a health consultation at Balmoral. Unofficially, sources say he refused to endorse the exhibit's framing, citing concerns it would invite comparison and backlash. In his absence, only a few minor royals attended the launch. The Duke and Duchess of Gloucester, a hesitant Lord Chamberlain, and a handful of staffers. To the press, the message was clear. Camilla had misjudged the moment. And as cameras panned across the exhibition's polished corridors, one thing stood out: the overwhelming number of photos of Camilla herself, posing beside podiums, in charities bearing her name, captions emphasizing her visibility and modern influence. One royal biographer called it less a tribute to duty, more a scrapbook of contested relevance. Meanwhile, Catherine, Princess of Wales, responded without speaking. On the official Kensington Royal Instagram account, a story appeared. A photo of Charlotte, Anne, and 3 archivists, sleeves rolled up, sorting boxes in a cold-lit room. The caption? "Work, not display." Duty, not decoration. It garnered over 3 million views within 24 hours. Social media responded with hashtags like #GreyHouse over Glamour, #Charlotte the Quiet, Camilla Scrapbook. And just as Camilla was preparing a second media rollout, she was summoned privately to Windsor Castle's Long Gallery by Princess Anne. Witnesses described the clash as a chandelier moment. Camilla, visibly upset, accused Anne of manipulating a child to eclipse her legacy. Anne's reply stunned even senior staff nearby. If the spotlight finds her, Camilla, it's because the public sees what you're trying to hide. Charlotte was never meant to be a working royal either, but neither were you. And yet here we are, Camilla left in silence. The air, one witness said, felt like mourning. The most revealing signal did not come through headlines. It came through absence. 48 hours after Camilla exited Windsor's Long Gallery in silence, King Charles convened a closed advisory session not at Clarence House, not at Buckingham Palace, but in Sandringham's East Library, a room his mother had reserved for long-term institutional decisions. Present were Princess Anne, Prince Edward and Sophie, a senior ethics advisor from the Royal Trust Fund, 2 constitutional lawyers. And, for the first time in any such gathering, Princess Charlotte, Queen Camilla, was not invited. Inside palace corridors, staff called it what it was, a line being drawn without ink. According to officials briefed afterward, Charles opened the meeting with no emotion and no theatrics. "We are not here to debate the will," he said quietly. "We are here to manage the consequences of honoring it." Folders were passed across the table, polling data, Scottish press coverage, legal memoranda, public trust indices, compiled by the Royal Continuity Office. The numbers were stark. Charlotte's Greyfriars remarks had produced the highest approval spike for a minor royal in a decade. In Scotland, support for preserving Eldonmore as private, non-commercial heritage property had crossed 80%. One advisor summarized the risk. "If we hesitate now, the public will read it as institutional weakness or interference." Anne, seated opposite the king, didn't flinch. "The will was designed for this moment," she said. "My mother anticipated pressure. She removed the levers." Edward added only one sentence. "My daughter is not a bargaining chip. Neither is my niece." Charlotte listened without speaking, hands folded, eyes steady. Before the meeting adjourned, Charles slid a sealed envelope across the table, addressed in his own hand, to HRH, Princess Charlotte of Wales. Inside, sources say, was a formal invitation, not yet public, offering Charlotte a defined expansion of royal duties, heritage preservation, youth leadership initiatives, and oversight roles within the Royal Collection Trust. It was not a coronation. It was something subtler, an elevation of moral function. But the offer came with conditions: London residence during service periods, full-time protective detail, withdrawal from any private teaching or commercial activities, media coordination under palace protocol. Charlotte read the letter carefully, then closed it. "I'm grateful," she said, "but I will not decide quickly." Anne's mouth twitched approval, disguised as discipline. Sophie looked worried. That evening, the tabloids broke a new angle. Palace considers expanded role for Charlotte. Someone had spoken. Not the king, not Anne, not Edward. But enough had reached Fleet Street to ignite speculation. Camilla's allies responded immediately. Commentators close to her circle questioned whether Charlotte was being fast-tracked. Opinion columns wondered aloud if public affection was being allowed to override hierarchy. One unnamed source told a Sunday paper, "This is about optics, not order." Within hours, Princess Anne issued a single-line clarification through palace channels. Princess Charlotte has neither requested new duties nor sought public distinction. No embellishment, no defense, just subtraction. It worked. The pressure did not remain domestic. In California, Meghan Markle appeared on a late-night talk show and made remarks that rippled instantly across British feeds. When institutions elevate silence over honesty, we should ask who benefits. She did not mention Charlotte. She didn't have to. Arkwell-aligned accounts pushed the clip within minutes. Hashtags followed. #silenced princess. #manufactured royal. #behind the palace. Inside Kensington Palace, aides watched the trend curve spike, then stall. William's response was brief. No public statement, only a call to Anne, and permission granted for Catherine to act. At 8:42 p.m., Catherine posted a story on the official Joint Wales account. A single image, Charlotte, Anne, and two archivists standing in wool jumpers beside stacked archival crates. No crowns, no photographers, just work. The caption, "Duty before display. 3 million interactions by midnight." The hashtags evaporated. Behind closed doors, senior officials began using a new phrase. Not officially, not on paper, in briefings, in corridors, in planning memos that spoke of symbolic equilibrium. They called Charlotte a stabilizing axis, not a rival, not a replacement, something rarer, a fixed point. And somewhere inside Clarence's house, staff noted that Camilla had requested and been denied inclusion in the next royal continuity briefing. No explanation was given, only a schedule, one that did not include her. At exactly 10 a.m. on February 22, 2026, beneath a flurry of snowflakes dusting the granite steps of Eldenmore Estate, Princess Charlotte emerged alone. No bodyguards in frame, no family in tow. Only a simple wool coat and the faint imprint of a silver thistle brooch gleaming beneath her collar, the same one worn at Greyfriars. She stepped behind a wooden podium, placed discreetly by the estate's north entrance. Cameras were allowed, but only 2. Live stream access was granted, but no media questions permitted. Her voice, when it came, was steady. "The estate I inherited is not a gift. It is a guardpost. Eldenmore is not a relic to admire, nor a venue to display. It is a memory under oath and a promise under construction." Then she unveiled it. The Grey House Initiative had been reborn under a new name and a far broader mission. I am honored to announce the Eldenmore Trust. It will serve not only as an archive of my grandmother's legacy, but as a living platform for 3 goals: to uplift those who serve quietly, to preserve what cannot be commodified, and to prepare young people for ethical leadership not crowned but earned. The words were neither radical nor rehearsed. They were calibrated to carry the weight of a monarchy rebalancing itself in real time. Immediately following the announcement, palace sources confirmed what some had already speculated. Charlotte had declined the HRH upgrade offered by King Charles. The decision, aides say, had been made days earlier but timed to allow her to speak on her own terms. She had written a private response to the king, one now being discreetly cited across courtier circles as a document that will one day be studied. An excerpt reportedly read, "I do not decline out of pride. I decline out of purpose. Let the title go to those who need it to speak. I will carry something else." Within an hour of the live stream, number Charlotte of Eldenmore trended across social platforms in over 20 countries. But the real resonance came not from hashtags but from those who chose to answer. Within 72 hours of Charlotte's announcement, handwritten letters began arriving at Eldenmore. A Kenyan women's cooperative sent blessings on papyrus, referencing Elizabeth II's first Commonwealth visit. A First Nations leader in Alberta offered a piece of oral wisdom, stating, "Those who inherit silence must speak for the trees." A retired postmistress from Wales, who had met Queen Elizabeth once in 1955, sent an old photograph with the caption, "You have her eyes and her stillness." More surprising still was the correspondence from inside the institution. A rarely used channel known as the Crown Ethics Exchange, designed to receive internal feedback from royal charity officers, reported its highest activity spike since the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. Over 60 anonymous submissions praised Charlotte's approach as the return of moral clarity, the first royal act in years that felt sacred, not strategic. What we forgot we were allowed to believe in. The momentum blindsided Queen Camilla. According to insiders, she had expected Charlotte to eventually accept the HRH title and be molded into a predictable role, manageable through protocol, appearances, and media framing. But now, the narrative had slipped entirely from her grasp. She reportedly summoned her communications team to prepare a counter-campaign, one centered around a renewed exhibition pitch titled "Compassion in the Crown: The Human Heart of Modern Monarchy." The plan? A traveling display blending Camilla's charitable work with personal items linked to Elizabeth II, framed to show continuity between them. But there was one problem. The Royal Collection Trust refused to loan any of the items. Internal memos, later leaked to The Times, cited symbolic conflict and lack of institutional alignment as reasons. Translation: the monarchy had chosen its narrative, and it did not include Camilla's version. To observers, This wasn't mere bureaucracy. It was a hard pivot. A moment when the apparatus behind the crown realigned its emotional weight toward Charlotte. Throughout this whirlwind, Princess Catherine never spoke publicly. She didn't need to. Every digital move she made was treated like scripture by the public. On the evening of Charlotte's Eldonmore speech, the Wales Instagram account shared a short, muted video. Charlotte alone in a study room, unwrapping a small package. Inside, a diary marked 1953, wrapped in pale blue silk. The caption? Some inherit buildings. Some inherit timelines. She inherited memory. A source close to Catherine later told Royal Insider, Catherine isn't managing Charlotte. She's mentoring her, but only from the shadows. She knows the power of letting a message breathe without her name on it. In back rooms and planning chambers, a quiet restructuring began to take place. The Royal Continuity Office issued a series of internal updates, indicating that non-titled moral figures would now be considered a pillar class in future monarchy modeling. Translated bluntly, the monarchy was preparing to institutionalize influence without coronation. Charlotte wasn't just an exception, she was becoming a prototype. By the week's end, 4 new internship positions were announced under the Eldonmore Trust, targeting young women in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, and the Midlands. One sentence in the official press release stood out. We believe quiet stewardship is not the absence of ambition, but its highest form. Meghan Markle appeared on the U.S. daytime talk show The Conversation, seated confidently in a tailored ivory suit, flanked by sympathetic hosts and an audience primed for subtle drama. The conversation began innocuously. Charity work, wellness branding, the challenges of living in dual cultures. But when the topic turned to the royal family and legacy, Meghan leaned in. Her voice softened, her tone calculated. I just think, when public adoration starts flowing to those who haven't had to earn their space when silence is branded as virtue, we need to ask, who's curating that silence? She never said Charlotte's name, but she didn't need to. Within seconds, the clip surged across social media. Number curated silence trending in California, then spreading to London, Sydney, and Toronto. Supporters praised Meghan's courage to speak truth to the crown, but the backlash came fast and far stronger. British outlets didn't hold back. The Telegraph published a scathing editorial. The Duchess, having willingly exited duty, now criticizes those who walk its lonely halls. The Daily Mail called it jealousy cloaked in modernity. The Times labeled it tone deaf. And The Guardian, usually more reserved, wrote, there is a profound difference between being erased and refusing to be performative. The most shared reaction came not from press, but from a palace source close to the Wales household. Charlotte has never once spoken about Meghan, but Meghan can't seem to stop circling Charlotte. Meanwhile, Princess Anne and Prince Edward issued an unprecedented joint statement. Princess Charlotte has never sought status, only purpose. Those who view dignity as an accessory may never understand that. It was crisp, it was devastating, and it landed with precision. Behind the scenes, King Charles III was watching everything unfold. Polls arriving on his desk told a clear story. Over 71% of Britons now supported Charlotte having an expanded symbolic role. Among Scots, support exceeded 84%, with the Eldonmore Trust seen as untouchable heritage. And most telling, over 40% of respondents aged 18-30 said they trusted Charlotte more than any other member of the royal family except Catherine. The king did not respond publicly, but he did cancel a planned internal session with the Royal Communications Office that had originally been called to rebalance narrative presence. He also ordered no further press coordination on Camilla's behalf for the rest of the month. Aides took the message clearly. Let the shift happen. Don't try to reclaim it. One insider put it more bluntly. The king saw the writing on the wall. It was Charlotte's ink. 2 days after her talk show appearance, Meghan's team circulated an internal memo to several brand partners proposing a new Archewell initiative, Foundations of Voice, a youth fellowship for global girls' leadership. The framing? Creating space for unheard voices, celebrating courage over silence. But the pitch was met with hesitation. 2 major donors quietly withdrew interest, citing strategic conflict with other ongoing Commonwealth youth campaigns of veiled reference to the Eldonmore Trust. More damaging was the response from one mid-sized London nonprofit, previously affiliated with Archewell. We'd rather stand with someone who listens first and speaks last. Within 72 hours, the entire initiative was shelved. Meghan's U.S. spokesperson denied any link to Charlotte's rise, calling the decision programmatic realignment. But internally, frustration grew. Arkewell staff turnover spiked again. And in Montecito, one palace aide whispered, "You can feel the desperation." Prince William had not spoken publicly since Charlotte's February 22 announcement, but in private, he was methodical. Sources close to Kensington Palace revealed that he met privately with Princess Anne and the Master of the Royal College of Archives. The topic? Codifying Charlotte's stewardship role without invoking succession. His goal? To protect her from media overexposure, while legitimizing her moral authority within royal structure. "It's not about creating a rival monarchy," he reportedly told one advisor. "It's about building an anchor. The firm needs gravity." He then approved a subtle adjustment to the royal website. Charlotte's biography was updated to include a single new line. In addition to her education, Her Royal Highness assists with the Eldonmore Trust's preservation and youth development initiatives. No announcement, no headline, just presence. Princess Catherine released a handwritten note on official palace stationery. It was posted on the Wales Instagram account, captioned simply, "From mother to daughter, for every daughter." The note read, "Legacy is not measured in how many people applaud us, but how many we remember to serve without asking them to look." Attached to the post was a photograph. Charlotte standing beside a stained glass window, gazing at a quote etched in the glass. "What is remembered with dignity endures longer than what is displayed for applause." Elizabeth R. It received 7.2 million likes in 24 hours. By mid-February, Archewell Foundation's board had requested a full strategic audit. Internal minutes, leaked to Royal Insider, cited reputational inconsistencies, diminishing differentiation from Crown-adjacent initiatives, stakeholder concern over oppositional branding. Meanwhile, the Eldonmore Trust received its first official grant from the Scottish Cultural Heritage Board, a modest £1.2 million for interfaith education programs and oral history preservation. One Parliament member praised the Trust's charter as a model of apolitical integrity. Another remarked, "The princess speaks like a young queen without ever asking to be one." By the final week of February 2026, what began as a private inheritance had quietly evolved into a global reckoning. Princess Charlotte, once considered the quiet middle child in the House of Wales, was now the moral center of a monarchy in flux, not by decree, not by coronation, but by the steady gravity of earned reverence. The ripple effects extended beyond Britain. From New Zealand to Nigeria, editorials praised Charlotte's Eldonmore model as a return to monarchy by merit. In Canada, Indigenous leaders invited her to speak not as a royal, but as a guardian of intergenerational truth. In Kenya, a mural of Charlotte lighting a candle beneath Queen Elizabeth's quote was unveiled with a local choir singing, "Long live the crownless flame." Even in the U.S., where royal coverage often skewed toward Harry and Meghan, late-night hosts began shifting tone. Turns out the real royal documentary isn't streaming on Netflix. It's happening one archived diary at a time, in the Highlands. Queen Camilla, once a dominant presence in the modernization narrative of the monarchy, now receded into silence. No statements, no events, no appearances beyond private chapel visits and health updates. Insiders say she was offered a chance to co-curate a future exhibition alongside Catherine and Anne. She declined. Instead, she requested to move part-time to Ray Mill House, away from Clarence House, away from central London, away from the pulse of a monarchy that no longer orbited her. She finally understood, one courtier remarked quietly. Not every era ends with a speech, some just fade. A leap day, the Eldonmore Trust released its first public video. Charlotte appears seated at a desk in the estate's study. No tiara, no portrait backdrop, just wood, light, and paper. She reads, "I do not seek elevation. I seek continuity, not to inherit the throne, but to ensure that what it stands for is never lost. In the noise, in the mirrors, in the performance. Let others chase applause. I will tend to remember." The video closed with a quote etched in the stone hearth behind her. "Silence is not absence. It is the space in which truth remembers itself." The palace released no formal title for Charlotte, but it did something unprecedented. A new section was quietly added to the royal household website, Custodians of Continuity. Beneath it, 3 names: Princess Anne, Princess Catherine, Princess Charlotte. No titles, no hierarchy, just a shared creed. Service without spectacle, memory without manipulation. Legacy that is not worn but carried. By February 20, British media had coined a term, the Grey Successor, not because Charlotte would wear the crown, but because she now held what even a crown could not command, the nation's quiet faith. And as a palace staffer whispered that morning, they used to ask who will rule next. Now they ask who remembers best. And in that answer, Charlotte stood alone. Not above the crown, but behind it, holding it steady, forever the guardian of Eldenmore. And perhaps the soul of Windsor's next chapter